everyone is making the best of their time cooped up at home. This is Michelle Cooper, and I'm going to be discussing engagement in the virtual classroom in this professional development slideshow. If you didn't catch my last post, I'm the academic support coach at Cordova High School, and my goal here is to share some ideas so that your virtual teaching is easier and more rewarding for you and your students. To start, it's always good to remind yourself that this is a learning experience for everyone involved, students, teachers, and administrators. You need to allow yourself to make mistakes and make changes as you go, especially if those changes make your online teaching experience easier for you and the students. We've all considered how to engage students in the actual brick and mortar classroom, but how much of that can be transferred over once we are no longer together? That's the main question. There are actually a lot of different types of engagement that can be useful in both types of classroom, but let's take a look at what virtual engagement is and what it is not. Engagement in general is the energy in a classroom that students respond to and are willing to show up for. Students are going to naturally be more engaged if they have some control or choice over what they're doing. So when possible, give them options. Students also need to feel safe and wanted in online class discussions, and they need to have some sort of social contact with you as well as their peers. Virtual engagement is not entertaining your students or trying to get them all online at the same time every day. You don't need to constantly be online together to engage your students. You also don't need to make everything fun and games. We still want to get these students the skills they need to do well next year and beyond. You want to stay true to yourself. If you have a big personality in the classroom that students react positively to, then you'll want to carry that over online as much as possible. Obviously, motivation is key to getting students to log in, participate, and complete assignments. Don't assume that your students are motivated to work online. Some students only come to school to socialize and get out of the house. Most end up passing since they do the work once they show up, but without that socialization piece, you are going to have a dip in attendance. If there is any way that you can give them a social activity online in your classroom, then do it. And we'll discuss some ways in a bit. Make sure your students know they can start working now, even if they didn't while they were in the actual classroom or before spring break. Our goal at this point is to get students to learn and prepare them for next year. If students are showing up and willing to work, then be positive and assist them with passing when possible. Be yourself. You don't want the students to wonder if it's really you on the other end of the computer. Students should hear your voice at least once a week. You can do an audio voice recording, film yourself, or have a voluntary Zoom meeting. But knowing that you are human and that you exist is important for engagement. Part of engaging students is first recognizing their resistance. Some students just don't want to log on, some can't as much as they would like, and others at this point are thinking about summer school. If you can acknowledge these barriers with the students, you might be able to help them get motivated to finish this year instead of putting it off. There are 3 types of engagement that are important in the virtual classroom. Engagement with the teacher, which should be positive, engagement with the coursework, and engagement with peers. One piece of advice that I always used in the classroom: if they know you as the teacher thinks it's boring, useless, or hard, they are never going to take it seriously. You need to support and be all in with virtual teaching and the classroom, or you are going to lose unmotivated students fast. Even if you dislike the idea, don't admit it. Set a positive tone and energy. Teenagers like to talk to each other, and some who are really listening to social distancing rules aren't seeing each other as much as they'd like. So if you can, give them a casual place to hang out, like a chat room or something within the classroom. You can also use weekly discussion questions to help with this. I am a big advocate of weekly discussion questions. There really is no reason to not have a place where students come to chat and discuss whatever it is you're learning in class. If you can make it personal and debatable while still sticking with a lesson, you will have a lot more engagement. One spin on discussion questions that works really well in the ELA classroom is role playing. And this is where you ask students to answer questions from the perspective of a character in the book that you're reading together. Obviously, this doesn't work for a class like math, but it could work for social science. You could ask them to play the role of a historical figure. Another idea, if your discussion questions are too academic or students aren't really jumping in and communicating with one another, is to give them a quick, fun, weekly icebreaker. You really want to build your class up as a team that's in this together. So you can have them take a pictures and share. You can give them an I'd rather or what if scenario, any kind of icebreaker that's fun and light that they can come on and do, and read each other's responses will motivate them to log on. Some students probably love the idea of being online, and others may just be bored enough to make their own videos. All teens have phones and many like attention, so if you can use this to get them engaged, then do it. Obviously, you want to have parameters, and if possible, have it involve what you are working on in class. This is also a great way to give students choice. If they don't want to explain something through writing, let them explain it vocally. Obviously, weekly competitions of any kind are a great way to engage students. If you teach multiple sections of the same class or grade level, do cross-class competitions or have everyone involved in one Quizlet Live to make it more energetic and fun. You can also give them virtual treasure hunts. For example, you can have them look up specific literary devices in the novel you're reading or facts about something you're studying. Make sure they know when the hunt starts, post the specifics at a specific time, and give them a set amount of time. It could be 2 hours, it could be 2 days. The first to post the correct answers in the chat room wins. If you are doing regular virtual Zoom meetings, I would also consider doing one for multiple classes at the exact same time. This really only works if you teach multiple sections of the same class, but students might really enjoy seeing their peers that are in your other classes, since nobody's really seeing each other right now. This may get them to log on. Another way to encourage engagement and to create a safe place is to share with them the issues at hand. In a positive way, discuss what issues you're seeing. Not enough participation, tech issues, system issues, students aren't completing assignments, etc. Have virtual conversations about it and make sure they feel as if they are part of the team that is going to solve the problem. Ask them for advice on how you can help them. And that brings me to my next piece of advice. You have to care and you have to show them you care. Again, this isn't much different than the regular classroom. If you don't have a positive relationship with students, they are less likely to work with you, especially if they are not self-motivated. Relationships matter, even and probably especially in the online environment. Clarity is important when motivating students in this type of makeshift classroom. Make sure they know it's possible to pass the class and make sure they know exactly what they need in order to succeed. You might consider giving them a to-do list that's weekly or monthly, or if you're a super planner, then let them know what to expect for the rest of the year. I said this a lot in my last video, but consistency is important. You don't want to overwhelm students who have to log on to several classes. So if you consistently expect the same amount and type of work every week, you will have a better outcome. Make your assignments accessible. When possible, try not to add a click here and then lead them to another document. If it's possible, whatever information you can put on the page they first log onto, the better. If they have to go to a bunch of different places, it might get more difficult. Some of your students will access or attempt to access your virtual classroom via their cell phone if they don't have at-home internet access or a computer. And cell phones are more difficult, so you want the access to be easy so that they can actually see what they're supposed to be doing from their cell phone. Even if they can't complete the assignments on their cell phone, if they can just see what they're supposed to be doing, it will help them plan. As a reminder, more work rarely leads to more engagement. Your expectations in this type of classroom should be streamlined and less complicated. Moving to a virtual learning environment because of a lockdown is very different than a regular online school, so keep your expectations in check. If you still struggle with getting students to log on more than once a week, then consider polling your students to find out what the issues are. The last thing you want is for a confused student to throw in the towel and decide summer school is easier and then never log on again. Exit polls are also a great way to see if students are learning. Since it's harder to check for understanding online, exit tickets and polls can assist you with this. To conclude, you'll need to be interested in your students and their struggles in order to interest them in what you are teaching. Anytime you can use real-life scenarios to teach them or relay your lesson to their lives, you should take the opportunity. Teenagers need to see how what you are teaching is relevant, especially if they are naturally unmotivated. Here's a recap. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to take away something to use in your virtual classrooms. Good luck.